My job here is to help you turn chaos to calm without spending hours a day on training and traditional obedience, because it doesn't work and it's boring. So I have a question for you. Does anyone else feel like their dog is a superstar at home and maybe during practice, but then the moment you go outside, their brain just goes poof and they forget everything? Or anybody else think they're the doorbell actually cues your dog for chaos rather than a nice, friendly greeting that we all imagined we were going to have at some point? So you're not alone. I get it. I just want to ask people, just so I can make this relevant, what is the hardest place for your dog to stay calm and focused? So just pop it in the chat. Maybe it's and try to get as specific as you can. What throws your dog off the most? Is it a doorbell, a squirrel, a leaf blower, your neighbor's dog, delivery trucks? Is there something specific that throws your dog off the most? And then what environment is it hardest for them to focus in? Is it all, do you think? Or are there some, usually people say, oh, my dog, I go outside, and they just don't listen. And then when we really break it down, we realize, nah, it's pretty specific circumstances that they don't listen. Might be many specific circumstances, but we'll talk about that and what I mean by that. So I just want you to know you're not alone at all. Most people say their dog is a superstar indoors when it's quiet and calm, and then chaos ensues the moment they walk outside. So tonight we're going to explore how training games help close that gap between indoors, kitchen skills, we call them, and real world success and real life training when we're out and about with our dogs or doing real things or having real people over. Okay, so first of all, we want to talk about, why don't these skills transfer? Why doesn't sit in the kitchen equal sit outside or sit in the park? I know. The answer is we're not really sure. But we do have science behind it. I'm not kidding. Is that dogs don't generalize automatically. So let's look at what is generalization and what does contextual learning mean. Because I think we confuse things a lot. So dogs learn context and emotion dependent. Now, context is they are so aware of all the little nuances. Here's the thing I get most. When we're teaching a dog like to have self-control, we're teaching airplane game, we're doing something, people go, oh, you know what, my dog knows that. I can take out a bowl of food and I hold it and my dog will sit there and wait patiently until I set that bowl down, and then they wait and wait, and I can tell them release and they go get their food. That is awesome. That is such a great skill. And let's set the context. Usually the cue, all of it is the cue. We always think the cue is sit, stay. We think that's it. Dogs have taken in so much more before that. So that cue of getting fed is I walk to the pantry, or I walk to the drawer. It's the magic drawer that holds those magic feed bags. And then it's the linoleum kitchen floor. It's the dog bowl, the sight of the dog board, the smell of the dog bowl. All the things that go into feeding are all the cue to go to your bed, sit, and wait. So dogs have learned, if they're not holding the bowl and I'm not in the kitchen and I haven't heard the rustling of the bag, and then they somewhere outside tell me to sit, they literally have no clue what that word means, because they know it in a context. And they're driven by emotion. They're driven by food. So there's always the saying of classical conditioning, operant conditioning is sitting on your shoulder, or during operant conditioning, classical conditioning is sitting on your shoulder. I don't care. That confuses everybody if we're doing classical or operant. The fact is, it's the entire setup that your dog is cueing to. So when we go outside, they're like, nope, this is a new game. And so dogs learn in snapshots, is what we call. And this is also why, so like new place is a whole new command. If I stand up straight, tell my dog to sit, generally they're going to sit. But if I crouch down, I might go off camera here, crouching way down, or I'm doing this, and the dog's like, I don't even understand the word anymore. That's a big one in recall. We always go, come on, we get down, we crouch. And then later when we're actually walking, we turn and yell to our dog, come. Different, whole different. They're looking for you to face them and get down and crouch. So we want to make sure, that's when we call like all of it parting the cue. We want to teach the behavior when they're doing the behavior anyway, because we've trained it. This is what we do in pause mastery a lot. Once we've trained it, then we add the cue, because dogs don't learn through a cue. They learn context. So new place, new picture is a whole different setup. So that's what context means, that they learn in context. When they generalize, This is the problem we have with obedience training, is that obedience, I'd have to teach them sit in every single context. Okay, that's not hard. We can teach sit in lots of different places. I can go around and get a nice calm sit when the environment is not too distracting. My dog can listen to me, focus, put its butt on the ground. Behaviors, though, I couldn't teach my dog how to respond like when a UPS driver comes up, if you have that, or a FedEx, because those cars are going to sound different. Maybe when a neighbor's driving up. It's I would have to teach under every single situation. So that's called generalization, when the dog knows a cue under, or knows a behavior under lots of different areas. The generalized cue means we've got to move that around. And in order to teach obedience, I'd have to teach under all kinds of circumstances. I'd have to teach a delivery driver to come up at night, and because night's a different context, and then teach my dog to sit at the door. I'd have to teach it during the rain, during when I'm wearing a big jacket, when I'm wearing a hat, when I might be carrying an umbrella. Those are all context changes. So that's why I don't like traditional obedience training. There are times we need certain cues because I got to communicate with my dog, easiest to do through physical or verbal. But I just wanted to say that distinction of that's the main reason skills don't transfer. And so it's not defiance. It's actually the way their brain is wired. And it's fascinating. They're not wired for abstract thinking. They're wired for contextual, emotional thinking. There are studies. If you're a geek, dog geek, and I mean that with love because I am, send me an email. We can always talk about what studies have been done. They're doing a lot with fMRIs with dogs. It's fascinating to see what part of their brain lights up for reward centers, for learning centers in different contexts. It's amazing. So that's the brief geeky science part we're going to do tonight, but just realizing that dogs learn through association, and that's pairing this thing with this behavior or feeling or outcome, this thing with this feeling, behavior, outcome. And then they decide, is the behavior and outcome something that's interesting enough that makes it worth doing that thing, whatever I'm asking them to do. That's really abstract. Let's get into a little more details. It's just that their brain notices the details and notices your posture, your pose, your environment, your voice. So we got to be aware that that's often why we think our dog isn't listening. And that's why I love these games. So we'll talk about that. But the real life adds all the novelty and distraction that we need. Just walking out the door. We usually don't have to plan it. There's always that little rodent that runs in front of us, the kid on a bicycle or a skateboard, or your neighbor who just stopped by to say hi the moment you're out doing your awesome training walk. So real life is what we want to get ready for because that's where we live. But we have to build up our dog's ability to handle all those novelties and distractions. So for us, we use the basics framework, and how this ties in is really the awareness. So we're going to be noticing triggers. We're aware of our dog's skills and our dog's skills in that environment. We're synchronizing, helping our dog learn to respond to us and our movement, making sure that we aren't being the distraction. You see, I talk a lot with my hands. I have to be very aware of that when I train. I got to put my hands back behind me because otherwise I'm part of the distraction. And then obviously that all starts with the bond, which is the connection, that Bluetooth connection we've got with our dog. So we talk about the games. This is where they come in. The games bridge knowing and doing. So what are training games? So training games goes beyond, when I say games, dogs think of the world in terms of games. So we try to keep it fun and light because otherwise we turn training into, got to put my pack on, I got to get all the treats. So hard. So if we play a game, it's fun. When we're playing in fun, that's actually increasing the bond with our dog as opposed to me ordering the dog around. Just want to keep framing this. I'm going to keep hammering every time you hear me talk. You'll hear me say, we always say dogs are humans' best friend, right? So look, we want this dog to be our best friend. And yet we're commanding it around and ordering it and telling it what to do and trying to be alpha. All that stuff is outdated and boring and messy. But I also don't want to go to the other end where we think we're dealing with this really sensitive, well, they are very sensitive, but they have an amazing amount of endurance and resiliency. So they're also not tiny humans. So the games we play are fun, but they're structured, focused, brain building games. So they go beyond fetch and tug, although there's purpose there. That's more, I'm going to call that play, but even the games are focused play. So we want to think of their repeatable patterns that help your dog learn how to think and how to respond. They help regulate emotional fluency. And yes, your dogs do have emotions. They're expressed very differently than human emotions, but they do have all kinds of emotions. A lot of sensitive dogs out there today have big feels, big emotions, big reactions. So that's why the structured play is designed to build that emotional regulation and decision making rather than just obedience. So think of this in your own life. If you were told because I said so, some of us respond to that and it's fine. Some of us don't question. I am a big questioner, which is why you'll see me teaching this method, because if somebody came up to me and said, sit because I said so, I'd be like, oh, that's not really going to work out for you. So I'm going to question maybe why, what's in it for me? I'm negotiating. My parents can attest to that. I've done it since I was a kid. But some of us go, oh, sit. Okay. I don't know why I'm here. I'm just going to follow. That's fine. But know that your dog is also, some of them work really well with obedience and being told what to do. Some are just going to go, not interesting for me. So we got to structure our games to our dog in front of us. So what am I talking about? Like, if you do Buddy Basics, we teach a lot of these games in Buddy Basics, which is our foundation course. I think in Foundations, we have some of the games listed, but also in Mastery, we have a whole library of games. So something like Towards Me is a game, I call it conversation starter, where you toss out a treat and the dog grabs the treat from the ground. And when they orient back towards you, that's when you mark and deliver their reward, which is tossing out another treat. I'm not asking for any boring behavior. I'm just tossing the treat. But the other treat, the way the other treat gets tossed, the reward is by them orienting back towards me. And then I slow down the game and I wait for them to come in. So what is Towards Me? It builds orientation to you instead of the environment. It's that simple. Great foundation for recall. So that it starts getting in the pattern of, oh, when I orient back to you, here comes the rewards, as opposed to me orienting towards all of that other environment stuff. Now, we can't start in the park with the squirrel because we got to teach the dog the game. Just like you've got to learn basic math skills before you can go on to calculus or before you go on to algebra. Some of you just shut off at the word math because you just go, oh, too hard. Dogs do the same thing. So that's an example of Towards Me. Middle, when your dog comes around between your legs and kind of comes from the back and looks right up for you, that's creates safety and body awareness. So great for reactive dogs to create that real safe spot right next to you. A to B, or what we call A to B, is, again, teaches safety and trust, because your dog starts realizing these patterns that we've developed where I'm heading towards something, which is the and I'm going to help lead them around in a nice fluid motion. The other direction, to B. So we call it A to B. It's a great game. It's in Buddy Basics. But it's your dog helps start understanding that you are the one leading them away from a worrisome situation. Dish to dish, put bowl to bowl. Some of us know these as pattern games. That helps create predictability. And the analogy I use there is when life is feeling chaotic and we feel like we're getting bombarded with information. Some of us like to turn to something that we know is predictable. That can be puzzle solving. Some of us work with our hands. Some of us paint, some of us write poetry, whatever it is, it's a predictable thing that I know I can do. And it's the same every time. And I can do it. And the world starts to melt away because I'm doing the thing I know how to do. That's what pattern games start doing. It regulates the nervous system. So we think of games as rehearsals for real life. However, here's the mistake I see most people make. And this is trainers, I make it, is we play games in an environment and we're playing the games. We're like, I'm really seeing the difference with my dog. And then I strap on a harness, clip on that leash, and I go for a walk. And then I get the email that says, I don't understand. I played these games. They're great. How does that translate into a walk? He still pulls, he still barks, he's still very reactive, or he's still tearing up pillows. He still has separation anxiety. Yes. The games do not translate one-to-one like that. Remember, dogs don't do abstract thinking. But what we do with a game is we play it indoors, and then we slowly add distractions as we move along. I'm going to get to some real-world examples about that. just a second, but I just want you to say, like, I hear it and I always have a trouble trying to explain this. Is it does translate, but first the piece is to play that game just like we teach sit in lots of different environments. And we slowly add distractions that we can control. Classic desensitization kind of thing. We get used to, can my dog still work with me when all these distractions are happening? If the answer is yes, and they're consistently working with me, great. Let me try it in a different location. Let me try it in a different location. Now let me put on the leash, go out as if I'm going to go for a walk, but I'm at the front porch playing games. Then I'm going to walk 20 feet away from the front door, play those same games, come back to the front door, play the games. And the dog starts going, human, I know how to play this game. I got this one. So I'm going to trust you and I'm going to play. And then I walk to the end of the driveway or up the street and the kid zooms by on the skateboard and I'm trying to play the games and the dog can't listen to me. Okay, what do? I go, aha, I have reached an area that is too distracting for my dog. It's too much real life. So I got to go back to an area of less distraction. It happens. We let the dog recover, and then we try to play those games slowly, a little bit more. So I'm going to get to a little bit more practical in a minute, but that's how we rehearse for real life. So we play that same game 20 different times. You go to a brand new environment. I get out, I'm at the coast. I live in the mountains, so my dog doesn't go to the coast a lot. We get out and we go to the coast, and first thing I'm going to do is play games because there's all kinds of new smells and sights and sounds, but they go, yeah, I've played these games. So it might be a little more distracting. They might be like, well, I smell a seagull, but I'm going to come back and play this game with you because it's focused. I know what to do. I'm starting to build confidence. So again, why do these work? Let's get a little bit into the science behind it without going too much. Hansky is a scientist who worked a lot with mice, but he's got a lot of behavioral pieces. He found in the brain that lots of different systems, but the play and seeking system are really what drives this learning. So when dogs are playing and they're in seek mode, which is part of the predation sequence, we can go into that at some point. It's when they're playing seeking, play, seek, the brain becomes curious. We move the brain from the reactive area to the thinking part of the brain. I say it because our amygdala is back here. Dogs, it's more up on top of their head. But we move from emotion-driven to thinking. So the more we have games and we're playing and seeking, we can move them into a thinking area. So the games teach, like we said, emotional fluency, which is helping your dog have the ability to switch from excitement to calm. Because most dogs, like, you tell them to sit and be calm, and they're like, I would like that very much. I don't know how. So we've got to teach them. Right? So these games build emotional fluency. It's the same thing that happens with kids and in development. They build pattern recognition, which is a lot about the predictable frameworks. And what happens when life gets unpredictable, we can help them come back to a predictable framework. And it also builds confidence and safety. So that's why we, at Pause and Success, Custom Canines, we're celebrating all your wins because we want it to look like progress. But it's the small wins increase trust. Trust develops more dopamine in the brain. And that dopamine then becomes the reward rather than me always having to have treats and playing, right? It becomes self-rewarding to do this work behavior. Just like perhaps your dog has figured out it is self-rewarding to bark at the door. It's self-rewarding to pull on the leash because it gets the energy up, it gets everything moving, and I'm learning they bark. I, as human, get annoyed, so I bark back, meaning, stop it, don't. And they're like, aha, I have engagement. I got the family to move because I was bored. And then we go, why is he doing it? It's like, well, because it's become self-rewarding. Dopamine, as some of you know, is the addiction part of the brain. So they actually do get kind of addicted to behavior. So we've got to help them switch that around. Now, we don't need to go into a lot of science behind it right now. Just know that these games, when they're moved and they get excitement and they have success, they build confidence, that increases dopamine, and then that becomes self-rewarding. So there are ways that we don't have to just be a Pez dispenser all the time. We teach the dog that their brain teaches them that the actual act of being calm is self-rewarding. So in terms of our world when we say basics, that if you're not familiar with that, check it out in the foundations area. We've got the basics framework, but that's it. All these games are bonding because it's safe, joyful learning, which is the play. We've got awareness, where we're noticing shifts in our dog's energy and skills. Coaching, where we train for a situation, not in the situation. We don't just toss our dog in and assume they can work it out for themselves, because that usually sends them into overwhelm. And then we talk about succeeding, which is always ending on a high note of and a success in a training session, so that your dog's eager to come back and learn. We don't want to end on failure. We never want to end on punishment, because we don't use punishment. But if you're frustrated or your dog didn't do it, we want to set them up for success. So just go back and do something very easy. And then that's what it looks like in terms of real world, our framework of basics, how that looks like. So basically, now we're going to look at real life. So how do we bridge between practice and public? Because we can practice the games, and like we said, we got to go out in public at some point, but how do we start making these transitions? So the first thing is we start small. And by I mean small, I'm thinking however you're thinking small, maybe take it down about by 10. The incremental learning. So we begin in a calm environment, like the kitchen, right? And then we're going to add one context change. By that I might mean, okay, so I'm playing towards me, or I'm tossing out a treat, dog's orienting back towards me. This is all good, great. Now I'm going to put on a big funny hat, and I'm going to play towards me. And your dog may not even notice. And you go, perfect, that's great. Now I'm going to add a little squeaky toy. And every once in a while I'm going to squeak the toy. Can the dog still focus on what the game is towards me, or does he reorient right to that squeaky toy? He knows to that squeaky toy, we know, whoop, that was too much. So I'm going to calmly put that away, and I'm going to go back to playing towards me. And I might do a piece of paper. Just crinkle that up, make that sound. I might ask somebody to move slowly across on the other side of the room. One thing at a time. And we're trying to say, can my dog still do what I'm doing with them as I start introducing distractions? Classic desensitization, which I think, by the way, should be practiced all the time with every dog. I don't care how advanced your dog is, there's always something we can add as a distraction that's novel. And so that's what we do. We add one piece of novelty. Phones are great. We have an entire resource of novelty in our phones, all kinds of sounds, sights, lights, things that we can do that can be controlled by us. It's also great about using your phone, just real side note, is because how many of you get on the pick up a call and you go, hello, and dog goes crazy? Because that's the cue. That's the cue that I'm about to ignore my dog for a long period of time, and they're not agreeing to it. So use your phone as part of your training tools. They start realizing, oh, the phone is not an issue. So that's a little more advanced. We can get into that. But the second piece then is we can add emotion. So we talk about this in our work as environmental levels of distraction, but it's not always external environment. It can be internal by adding emotion. Think of it as a doorbell. What emotion happens when the doorbell rings for your dog? Or how about you? See if you can pop that in the chat if you're with us. If you're watching this as a recording, just write it down. But the doorbell means visitors. It means maybe something scary. It means I got to protect. It could mean, I don't know, what? Food is coming. There's some excitement at a doorway. So it adds, and by excitement, it could be negative emotion. It could be positive, negative. So the whole idea is that doorbell rings, a dog has an emotion. So what we want to do is, well, can they listen to me now in a state of emotion? The answer may be no, but we'll work with, that's where training comes in, is how do we train when your dog is feeling emotion? So we don't always have to go down to what is the emotion. It's so tempting. I do it all the time. I'm like, oh, I got to figure out what this dog is feeling. We're never going to get it right, just like we can't get it right with humans. So it doesn't matter. It's just the fact is whatever they're experiencing is overriding their brain and they can't listen. So I got to help them bring it down, get back to calm, reset. And then we add the real world. So then I'm going to go maybe outside and that obnoxious little squirrel is going to run by and I'm going to go, oh, but we're on leash. I'm going to go, okay, what do I know? What do I know? My brain's going to freeze. The dog's going to freak out. The first time we go, shoot, that didn't work out at all. We go back inside. Grab my little piece of paper and I go, okay, I'm going to write down 2 things that I know how to do, 2 games. So I'm going to go outside. I'm going to play towards me. And that car comes by, and I'm going to do everything possible to be more exciting than that car. So I'm going to be over here playing towards me. I'm going to be full of energy. I'm going to be that dog's interaction. Car can go by. Maybe they didn't react as much. We celebrate. Maybe they had a meltdown, and we go, okay, that's too much then. My human instinct is to go, well, he'll get used to the car, so I'm just going to keep going. What we want to do is, that's the pattern we want to break. When we say dog training, human learning, that's the human learning side. It's uncomfortable because we got to go, but I wanted to go for a walk. And your dog says, no, thank you. Shoot, how am I going to fix the dog? First part is fix ourselves. Let's go back inside and work with our dog. And instead of going for a walk, play 10 minutes of training games. Play, not just sit, that gets boring. Play, I don't know, A to B. Play disengagement patterns, play that's why we have this games libraries, because we always want you to be able to go in and pick out games. I get that's in Pause Mastery, so if you're not there, you actually have till tomorrow if you do want to do that. We don't always sell on these Teaching Tuesdays, but we happen to be in that window right now. So that's what we do. We begin in calm, we add novelty, which is distractions we can control, try to add emotion for your dog, and then we take it outside, slowly, bit by bit. That's how the games, playing the exact same game, your dog starts going, I know this pattern. I can play a game. I got this. So let's look around, that we build confidence around novelty. That's a big piece. That's what I'm trying to say. We're trying to normalize new, because the world is full of new and novel things. And what we're trying to teach the dog through all this is, you just ignore that. And that takes a little bit of time, but it's because your dog's probably been practicing the opposite of it. So, this week, here's something you can do. Pick one thing that is fairly benign. Depending where you are, like a box fan that rolls, TV, maybe a dog coming on the TV, could be a hat, it could be a crinkly shopping bag. If you go in and download our readiness scale, we give tons of ideas on different things you can use, but try one thing. Take an umbrella, and then while you're working with your dog, doing something your dog knows, a hand target, through your legs, towards me, and then you open up that one thing. Like if I had an umbrella, I'm going to pop open the umbrella. And if the dog didn't notice it, perfect. I'm going to put it back down. I'm not going to try to shove it in the dog and be like, did you notice it? Did you notice it? Because then they go, I guess that's something I have to be worried about. Your dog did notice it. Believe me. Noticed it. They told you, I don't care about it. Just that's what I'm trying to go for. And then you go, okay, so umbrella's not the thing. Great. Let me try a squeaky toy. Ooh, that was maybe a little too much. Okay, let's put the squeaky toy away and try a shaker bottle. Putting something in rocks or something, not a startle sound, but something that's just a little bit more, crinkle paper. So try that with one game, and then I want to hear about your success. So come back to this post and tell me maybe what worked, what didn't work. And I want you to think of treating everything as a new training opportunity. As opposed to dread, we're going, hey, that's exciting. I wonder how I could help my dog learn that that's not important. That's the awareness we're looking at. We're approaching it with curiosity, going, gosh, my dog is really worried about that thing. Maybe really excited. Maybe we don't know. Maybe what we're saying to ourselves is, looking at my dog and dog flipped their lid. That's what I call it. I don't need to know what the emotion is driving it. Flip the lid. My example, I was taking Luna for a stroll down to our new dog park that we just built, put on her harness. She's fine. I mean, she gets excited, but she can still listen. Because I put the harness on, fine, I clip it, I get the leash on. I forgot to get my own jacket on, so I dropped the leash. So I'm like, she's fine, she's super excited. And then as I'm getting ready, my pattern changed. Something flipped with her, and now she's not listening. She's running around the house, dragging her leash, knocking it into stuff, which of course scares her. So now we're in the cycle of, I don't know what I can do. She flipped her lid. I don't know if she's overexcited to go out. I don't know if she got worried. I don't know if it was all the noise she was making and she's not associating with it. Doesn't matter. It was just, okay, I've got to support my dog. So what can I do? Pick up the leash, play a little towards me. She likes doing leg weaves, so we played some leg weaves. Then we got to the door. We played some disengagement from the door. She's back to, I know these games. I'm going to look at you. Okay, I can listen to you. Now let's go for a walk. This was a minute and a half. So I'm not talking, these are huge things. Like 2 or 3 reps of each. Okay, yep, you're back we're back, connections here, works, now let's go for a walk. So that's what it can look like in real life before you get out there. So when we talk about, I'm going to look at the chat and see if you guys put in any examples that I can look at. But when we talk about real life examples, we always want to train for that situation, not in the situation. What does that mean? If your dog struggles with visitors, right? Don't wait for visitors to come over and start training when there's a real person that has to get in your house. That's not the time to train, because we can't, well, people come to my house, they know they're going to have to wait outside for a while. But if you haven't trained your guests yet, guests assume they're going to knock on the door or ring the doorbell and be able to come in at some point. So that's not the time to train your dog. You want to train for that situation. So that's what we call getting ready for game day. You got to teach them the rules. You got to teach what real life looks like. So you set up fake doorbell moments. You've got a phone, get a doorbell sound, record your doorbell, and then just start playing that. And every time you play it, they get a reward away from the door. So doorbell, they get rewarded on their bed, or maybe 5 feet away. Doorbell, they get on their bed. Door knock, they go on their bed. The first thing that people go, yeah, but my dog knows the difference. Of course they do. But remember, we're rehearsing. We're rehearsing. So this doorbell sound becomes, that's the first level. Then I might ask a household member or somebody that the dog knows that isn't going to flip their lid for to just come and ring the real doorbell. Don't open the door. We're not concerned about that person getting inside. They're just going to sit on the other side, ring the doorbell once. You're going to go work with your dog. And if they calm down, perfect. Then you can try to open the door. But practice just ringing a real doorbell with a real person on the other side. So you see how this progresses. And then maybe we go to, I'm going to bang real loud on the door. And then I'm going to, ring the doorbell and knock, like those silly delivery drivers seem to do. They've learned. They've been trained differently now too. But, that it's hey, this is a real big thing. And I'm going to keep the pattern in a nice, calm environment that I can control. And if my dog gets that down, then when real visitors are coming over, it might be, okay, hold on, I'm going to put a sign on this door saying I'm coming, but I'm working on my dog to not be as excited. Most people really appreciate that, actually. So you can be like, I'll be right with you, and I'm going to work with my dog. And then if your dog won't stay the first time on their bed because we haven't topped that up enough, and there are some nuances to this, then that's when you want to put your dog behind a baby gate, maybe in another room so that they don't have access. That's where we go into, we're not letting them rehearse the behavior that we don't like. It's so easy to do. It's so easy to let them rehearse that behavior and just think, I'm exhausted this one time, I'm going to let them get away with it. Remember we talked about dopamine? That dopamine spikes and they're like, this is self-rewarding. And then we got about 10 times to undo it again to get back to that level of success. So as much as you can to not allow your dog to rehearse it, and that means pulling on walks. So we ditch the walks. And some of us don't mind pulling because we're going to be skating behind our dog. I want my dog to pull. I don't want a loose leash if he's pulling me around on the skateboard. So you've got to decide what's right for you and your dog and what you're doing. Service dogs, we want a nice loose leash, unless they're pulling a wheelchair. Then I want to get that dog that always pulls on leash because they're going to be a leader on the wheelchair and they're going to help power that wheelchair forward, unless it's a powered wheelchair. So you see what I mean? It's like there's not a one size fits all. It's what the relationship is with you and your dog. Do I need my dog to pull sometimes? Maybe I need a new piece of equipment so that, when they're wearing that harness, that's when they pull. Oh, lots of questions if you have them. Go ahead and put them in. But what we talk about is like doorbells and deliveries, since I brought that up. Let's practice this in your head. Imagine your dog. You hear the knock. What happens to you first? Don't think of what your dog does. You hear that knock. What's your reaction? I hear a knock and I go, who the actual heck is at my door? Nobody comes to the door anymore. So I'm very suspicious anyway. I don't like that. Oh, somebody's there. I'm not going to go to the door. I don't care unless I was expecting somebody. Probably not even ever going to answer the door. I'm going to go in the back room, work with my dog. But let's start with that. So we're not waiting. We toss that treat away. And what we're talking about is setting up calm before we allow the chaos to happen. Yes? Okay. Might be leaf blowers, loud noises. Record the noise on your phone. Start at a very low volume and just reward the calm behavior. And then as that noise gets louder, we reward. Maybe it gets a little louder. We keep rewarding. Kids in costumes. That's going to be happening this weekend. Think of that doorbell where maybe we put on our own hat. Maybe we reward sniffing around the door. Maybe we reward that was a cute costume. Here's every time you're giving out a piece of candy to a kid, your dog gets a treat. It's an idea, but we train for that. So this week, practice a lot of doorbells, practice, weird stuff popping up on the other side can happen. Or go, that's too much, Heather, I'm not going to do that. Let your dog be safe by putting them in the back room, by putting them away from the door. Maybe having a sleepover at a friend's house who doesn't live in such a busy area. But really look at, how can I support this dog during a crazy night of doorbell ringing and novelty? Is there any way? I strongly suggest, unless you've got a dog that is already awesome, you don't need to be bringing them out with you trick-or-treating. I guarantee you dogs are not going home comparing their costume pictures with each other. So just leave the dog at home instead of bringing them out. If you've got a dog that loves it and they are super happy, perfect. So we've got that. Now, what about these movement distractions like squirrels? That's where we set up pattern games and training at a distance. So like dish to dish. I'm going to play dish to dish at home. Then I'm going to move it to the driveway. And I'm going to start moving it or playing dish to dish, which is a pattern game where there's all these distractions. And we just teach my dog that movement is also none of their business. And I want you to keep it practical. This is the S in basics, the last S, which is succeeding. So train in bite-sized sessions, which is, set your 2-minute timer. Can you get a couple calm behaviors? Can you get some leg weaves while your coffee's brewing? And then I want you to celebrate all of them. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Okay, Gail, we've talked to, squirrels. Fence fighting with the neighbor dog. That's a good one. That is where we go into disengagement patterns. So I want to teach the dog the reward is 3 feet away from the fence. Reward is 3 feet away from the fence. So how do we look at that? I'm going to walk up 3 feet. That's where the reward is. And I run away. So we're practicing when there is no dog on the other side of the fence. Walk up towards that fence. We'll get about 3 feet away. Place a rope. Place a hose. A visual boundary is really good. So we walk up to that. And we go, no, we never get to cross that. And treat, 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 treat. Fence fighting is really, really fun. That gets the dopamine going. That gets the energy going. Also really, really dangerous because it's the moment they're fence fighting. We go out to the front yard, our guard's down, the dog goes, that's that guy that I've been yelling at for the last 2 years. I'm going to go show him who's boss. Bam. We get a dog fight. So that's where we go, okay, let's stop that fence fighting, which is you're going up around. I want you to start teaching 3 feet away from the fence. So it is nuanced on how we do that, but the rewards then are huge. Then we wait maybe when we know the dog's on the other side of the fence, but I got my dog on leash, so they can't run up. I'm going to go up to that visual boundary. I'm going to turn around, A to B, treat, 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 away from the fence. And over time, your dog starts going, I haven't been able to practice the fence fight. It becomes less interesting. Also, working with our dogs during the day, they don't practice those same behaviors all the time. That's part of it. Jamie, I know the phones make shadows. Yes, you do have a shadow hunter. I get it. So that's exactly where we want to start. We've got a shadow and we're just treating away from that. If we can't handle that because the dogs have already flipped their lid, already zoned in that velociraptor way to what that shadow or movement is, then we've got to go back to a nice calm environment, no shadows, and just start with slow movement. Slow movement. This happens, you get rewarded. Slow movement, maybe a little shadow over a lamp, and I'm going to reward you. And so we take it in baby steps. So that's what they start looking at. So that doorbell is super exciting. So I know that doesn't give you the exact thing, but if your dog can handle that distraction, we can train against it. If they get to rehearse it over and over and over, it will become stronger. So we try to go into, some of you know what I talk about, RMT, reframe, manage, train. So reframe, we think about what we want our dog to do instead of not do. So fence fighting, instead of I don't want my dog to fence fight, I want my dog to walk away from the fence and be calm. Instead of I don't want them to chase shadows, I want my dog to, I can't even say ignore. See, I even get stuck on these. So I want my dog to love shadows and then re-engage with me. Okay, so we're reframing. What do we want our dog to do rather than not do? And then we manage, meaning we try to not allow our dog to do that all the time, which is crates, leashes, exposure, not letting them exposure to it. Meaning if I know that, I was just out, actually, Jamie, I was thinking about you the other day when I was out, there was a disco ball and all the flashing lights. And I'm like, oh, I got to send this to Jamie. Her dog would go crazy. So how do we start, desensitizing our dogs? Well, we start with something small and move through. So that's kind of how it looks in real life. So I want you to try one game this week or one training thing, whatever it is, even if you haven't worked with us and don't have games, just try one thing. And I want you to start noticing not your dog's performance, but the connection you have with your dog. That when they start this behavior, you get to go, aha, they're worried. How could I support them? And then I want you to come back to this thread and say, is there anything that felt easier because you practice a game? And I want it to be small changes. Remember, we celebrate everything. Messy is normal. Small changes, big progress. So I got a little in the weeds on talking about how to do this, so we lasted a little bit longer. So I just want to wrap up and just remind you that games aren't silly extra little things we do. They're the building blocks of real life behavior. They're real life brain building blocks. Dogs don't learn with words. They could care less. Speaking of, hey Luna, that they learn about patterns and feelings and context. So the games give them all three of those. Games give them great emotions, patterns, context. So we can work with games as real building blocks. And you can get real creative with games. But remember that in Dog's world, everything is connected and nothing is connected. They work contextually and they also trigger stack. So they're amazing, amazing animals. So the more we can understand about them and how they work with us, we can have more successes. And so the basics, as we go through all of them, are buddy basics. We can bond through play. We can build that trust through awareness, being aware of our dog's skills. We synchronize our movements and our energy with our dog. We instruct with clarity. We coach, try to coach with curiosity as opposed to just telling your dog what to do. And then success is progression. So that's the basics, BASICS. Always go back to that basics. We just string them together different and different. And that's real life ready. So that's when we start saying, my dog might enjoy a walk again. My dog might enjoy ignoring the fence. My dog might let me get on the phone and not create a shadow and not react. Think of those times and start celebrating when that happens. Small steps matter. They're the foundation of emotional readiness and emotional resilience. So I'm going to encourage you to go experiment, celebrate the small wins, stay calm, confident, and connected. I'm Heather Furby with Pause and Success and Casa Luna Canines. Go out there and have some fun with your dog.